Welcome to another episode of the Advice First podcast. This is your host, Robert Clark. Today I'm joined by two very well-established guests here in Santa Clarita Valley, Mr. Rudy Herrera with College of Surety. Rudy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Robert. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. And sorry, it's not that one is superior than the other, but I'm most excited to have Denise Lite, family law attorney, here in the studio with us.
Hey, Robert.
Welcome to the Advice First podcast. Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I could not be doing better right now because you are probably one of the most entertaining Facebook friends I have.
Great.
I might just delete the other, four and just stick with one. Denise, for those who don't know you, you're a family law attorney.
Yes.
You're quite good at it.
Yes.
You care a lot about it.
Yes.
Can you help us understand how you arrived at that profession that you're in today?
Actually, that's a very funny story. I was a college senior in my second semester. I was student teaching because I wanted to be a teacher. And I had a classroom of 30 third graders with no teaching assistant. And it was December, and we were making like little reindeer puppets with lunch bags. And I looked over across the room, and I saw this kid dumping over some Elmer's glue on another kid's head. And all of a sudden, like, everything in the room started moving slow motion, and like I couldn't get to the other kid fast enough. And it was like I was running in like quicksand. And I got over to the little kid, and my first instinct was to like grab him by the shirt and go, "What are you doing?" Okay. And right before that happened, I popped out of it and I handled the situation, and I went, "Oh my God, you cannot be a teacher. Like, this is not for you."
Wow.
So we concluded the day's classroom activities, and I made an appointment to see my counselor on campus the next day, and I said, "I can't be a teacher." And he said, "What happened?" And I told him the story, and I said, "Listen, you have to have an incredible heart to be a teacher. My mother was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. You have to have boatloads of patience. I'm not that girl.
Yep.
I'm realizing that this is not in my wheelhouse. I need to do something different." Yeah. And he said, "Well, you're a second semester senior. What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe I'll take the CBEST. Maybe I'll take the law school LSAT." And I decided to take the law school exam, and here we are.
Wow.
So thanks to little Johnny, third grader, to propel me into the legal profession.
That is insane.
Yeah.
I've never heard a story like that, Most people are like, "Yeah, kind of by accident," but no, that was very driven.
No, my dad's a lawyer and my uncle's a lawyer, and they all, when I was younger, I said I want to be a lawyer, and they were all trying to steer me out of the field. They wanted me to stay home. They wanted me to be a teacher, have summers off, have children, have my own family, take summers off, not have all of the pressure, the intensity. And so that's the route I was going. I was on the teacher credential track, and thank God I left that track for the health and safety of all children in Los Angeles County.
But you love what you do.
I do.
You think you would have found it regardless?
I probably would have worked my way there somehow, something. I like the mental challenge, so there's lots of great careers out there. What's really funny is I said I would only do this for 15 years. I always wanted to be a person who had two careers in their life, like two really great careers.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm only going to do this for 15 years, and then I'm going to go out into the world and do my second career. Yeah. Well, here I am 27 years later, and now I can't get out because it's too much fun. I like it. There's too much demand.
Yep.
I can't leave it.
Yeah.
So no second career for me, but yeah.
Right. How do you manage all of that demand?
Managing the demand can be difficult at times. I have to be very selective of the clients that I take. Right. When I was a young family law attorney, I would almost represent anybody who came into my office. I was hungry. I wanted to build a business. I didn't want to say no. I didn't, all of those concerns about, building a pipeline and all of that stuff. And I would never say no, despite what my gut was telling me at the time. And it turns out that every time I ignored my gut instinct about a person, it was like the worst possible thing I could have done. And so now when I meet people, I'm interviewing them. I need to make sure that, they're not, my gut's not telling me that something's wrong with this person, that something, everybody has hurdles in their lifetime, but if I get a bad feeling about somebody, I'll just thank them for their time and I'll tell them I can't take the case.
Yeah. Interesting.
Have you ever said to your clients, I'm going to hire you or anything like that? Because I have a bad habit of saying that for the same reasons of having that intuition to see if I'm going to allow them to hire me. Where I sometimes during the presentation, I'll say something like that. Well, I'm going to hire you, and I have to catch myself and then explain to them why I'm saying this.
Yeah, I don't really. I don't say that I'm hiring them, but I let them know that it's not just because they're walking in the door doesn't mean I'm taking them on as a client. Right. There has to be a good fit. There has to be listen, I'm looking at people's intimate parts of their life. I'm looking at their finances. I'm looking at their tax returns. I'm looking at their private text messages. I'm looking at a lot of
their
intimate
character
stuff that goes on in a household. And an attorney and a client have to have a trust factor. They have to have a comfortableness factor. It's so funny because, some of my close friends will come up to me and say, oh, I saw so-and-so in a restaurant and they asked me if you were representing so-and-so, and I had to tell them, I don't know, because you're like a freaking steel trap. And I'm like, yep, I don't talk about anything with anybody. And even my own husband says, oh, I saw so-and-so. I didn't know you were representing them. Like my own client will see my husband at whatever, Olive Terrace for lunch or something. Yeah. And John will come home and say, oh, I didn't know you were representing so-and-so. And I go, oh. And he's like, yeah, I saw him today. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. And I'm like known for that because once that information passes, you can never get it back. So there has to be a trust between the lawyer and the client, and I also have to trust that the client's not going to be totally insane, because my reputation's on the line too. When I go to a judge and I say, this person's telling the truth, that judge is relying on me as the filter. Like, okay, if she says he's telling the truth, he's telling the truth. Like, I've screened that person. Right. So, yeah.
And I'm sure that's a world where once you break that trust once, I mean, it probably goes on to hurt you for the rest of your career.
Well, I never have, but clients have broken my trust. One of my best clients, this is a really crazy story, but one of my best clients was paying me about $45,000 a month on her case. Not a bad way to earn a living from one client, right?
Absolutely.
And we became too close. Like, we were friends, but we were close. And she called me on Christmas Eve at me, screaming at me on the phone about her case. 7 o'clock, calls my cell phone, knows I'm with my family. She's literally screaming at me. This. I'm like, I'm with my family. I'm hanging up on you. And I hung up on her. And the following Monday, I sent her a substitution of attorney saying, I will no longer work for you. What? No. And so the more that I tried to pull away from her, the more she wanted me. Yeah. And I fired myself off of her case. And about 4 months later, she called me and said, you have to come back to my case. Like, I don't trust anybody else. I'll pay you anything. And I said, no. And she said, can we go to lunch and talk about it? And I said, okay, fine, we'll go to lunch and talk about it. We went to the Four Seasons in Westlake Village. We had a spa day. We had lunch by the pool. We had champagne. And I still told her no.
What?
Yes. And it's because she broke that trust with me. Yep. And I wasn't going to put myself in that position ever again.
Good for you.
So, but I wouldn't have done that as a young lawyer, right?
Absolutely.
When you're young and hungry, you would never fire a client like that. But my dignity and my family traditions and my holidays with my kids, you can't put a price on that.
Nope.
So going through it and doing it over time gives you the confidence to say no. And when you say no, your yeses become more valuable. Mm-hmm. So, I tell people it's okay to say no, because when you finally say yes, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is great. She said yes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, when young lawyers come to me, what can I do? Value your no's.
Yep. There's how to build a business in 9 minutes, folks. We're just getting started.
The power of 2 letters, right? N-O, no. I do have a question, though. Being in your business and having a lot of friends, and not only having just one-sided friend, but both, a couple, and now they're getting divorced, and one of them comes to you. How do you handle that situation?
That's happened a lot. So it depends on the couple. I would say, let's say that that's happened 10 times. I would say 2 times, I would say I absolutely cannot represent either one of you, and I would refer both of them out. Six or 7 times, I would offer to mediate that for them. I care about you both. I care about your future. I care about your future. We can mediate this, but you have to have, utter confidence in me and the process, and it requires everybody to be fully transparent, fully cooperative, and this is how we would do that. And for the couples that I have done that for, and a lot of them too, it's been great. It goes very quickly. It saves them a lot of money. They all trust me that I'm going to be fair and tell both parties the good, the bad, and the ugly of their respective position. They save a lot of money doing that, and their case gets processed a lot faster. But there are some couples that I will just say, no, I can't do it, because I want to make sure I'm always fair, and if I feel like I would favor one person over the other inherently, I would say no. But for the ones that I've done it, I feel like I could be totally candid, like, dude, no.
Right.
So yeah, mediation's a great way to do it.
So that's the easiest way to do it.
Easiest, most cost efficient. Definitely quicker in terms of waiting for courts to get moving on your cases, especially now with COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. Sure, better for the kids.
Oh yeah, people, couples, parents who are co-parenting are more apt to follow a parenting arrangement that they formulate themselves than one that some man or lady in a black robe has thrown on them.
Yep.
Parents know their kids better than anybody.
Yep.
Judges spend a whopping 7 minutes reading court papers that you paid $10,000 for because they're trying to get through 15 cases a day.
Yep.
And they're like, just do this. Well, that every family is different. You can't, it's not like McDonald's where there's a menu for every menu item for everything.
Yep.
So it's better to really sit down and take the time, and everybody knows that little Johnny needs this piece of attention.
Yep, absolutely. That was one of the things that I noticed when I was preparing for our interview was the extensive amount of articles you've published for several news outlets, most notably here in Santa Clarita Valley. I think InsideSCV.com and Santa Clarita Magazine, dating all the way back to 2015, and a monthly thing. So if you think about that, we're in 2021. That's a lot of articles.
Yeah.
And some of those tips, what I was getting to is some of those tips that you're talking about, I saw in those articles about co-parenting, and I'm going through these, and things that you wouldn't think about, but are so important.
I like writing the articles because it gives people something to hang on to and remember if they cross that bridge or that problem a month or 2 months down the line. It's actually very funny because most of the time when people see an article that I've written, they have it folded up in their purse and their wallet, and they're like, I saw this article that you wrote, but it's really tattered and like wrinkly, and so I can tell that they've been carrying it around for a long time. But the articles are great. It gives people something to think about. If they have a lawyer who hasn't told them something that I've written about, it makes them think, oh, why didn't my lawyer tell me about that? So yeah, the articles are great. Sometimes I'm hard pressed to get them out on time. We're all busy and like keeping up with it. It's a lot, but it's been I enjoy it. I like writing them, but it's been a great natural client drawer for me.
Yeah, I could see that, but that's one of the things I applaud you for, because knowing how popular you are out here, taking the time to still write or produce one article a month is not easy.
Yeah, and it's funny because people say, "Oh my gosh, you should do this. You should write a book." Okay, I need to take a sabbatical for like 2 years so I can do all of the things that I would. Trust me, I would love to do that. I have a book in me. I know.
Yep.
I have a podcast in me. I know. Right. I've started doing. I don't know if you've seen them, but I don't really like doing videos too much, but I've started making like these little tea time videos where I have these little teacups and I do like a 60-second little tip. And the reaction to my tea time videos is so tremendous. It cracks me up because people are like, when are you doing another tea time video?
I love them.
I'm like, oh my God.
I've been telling her, you should put this on Instagram because these stories are just unbelievable. They're just great. It always makes me laugh. Sometimes I have to listen to it 2 times or 3 times.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny is all of them are my own personal experience, like things that I have actually seen and heard with my own ears. And being in the courts for 25 years, I will always say to myself, well, I've finally seen it all. And then like a week later, I'm like, nope, you didn't see it all. Here it is. Yeah. So the tea time videos are fun. I'm sure I'll continue to do them. But
I hope you go on Instagram and do that because I know if you do anything like that, you're going to be a great success. I know that for sure.
Thank you, but I'm going to date myself. So I'm not really prolific in social media. Like I'm not, I know how to do my little, like I'm like the old generation. I missed, the computer age by like, if I was just like 15 years younger and I was more computer savvy, like trust me, I'd be all over it. But, people want you to be on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. Like, when am I going to actually do legal work? I need to do legal work,
Yeah.
So I know, if I ever delve into the Instagram world, I'll let you know, Rudy.
Oh my God, I'll know right away. I mean, I think she'd be just terrific.
That's one of the things that draws me to you is you say it how you feel and you are not afraid to, but not in an obnoxious way. Mm-hmm. You make it very entertaining. And I love how you share some of your experiences as an attorney and what you do, and then also your family humor and stuff. I'm thinking about the one where it says your husband said relax, I'll put the dishes away, and you're like, I can't think of anything less relaxing. I was just dying.
And it's totally true. I mean, literally, he's like, I load the dishwasher, and it looks like a 3-year-old loaded it, and then he's like, there was no more room for the stuff, and I'm playing Tetris, and I've got like 15 more items in the dishwasher, and I'm like, you know what, just let me take care of those are the kind of things that people relate to, every day, the toilet paper over or under, like those types of arguments. And John and I are good about that. Like we laugh like crazy, but I try to just, make everybody feel like their household problems are everybody else's household problems. Yeah. We're all dealing with the rearranging of the dishwasher. Yeah. Don't worry.
Completely agree. Yes.
I have a question for you. I remember when I used to look at those articles, probably like in 2010 or 2011, the advertisements. And I don't remember seeing it today, but your marketing was heavily on who knows a woman better than I do.
Oh, I think you're thinking of have you ever argued with a woman?
That's the one.
Right. Have you ever argued with a woman?
And then I met her like after 4 years after my divorce, right? And I'm like, where the hell were you when right?
Yeah.
Because I totally forgot about that article, but when I met you a couple years later, 4 or 5 years later, I remember that, man, where was she when I needed her?
That article, that tagline spurred a lot of interest, good and bad. The tagline, some women found that completely offensive. Like, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why? It's true, like. So,
yeah, like, who knows a woman better than a woman, right?
And people always say to me, well, what are the demographics of your clients? And, to be honest, about 80% of my clients are men, about 20% are women. But the 20% of the women who hire me are the 20 smartest percent of the women because they know I typically represent men and they come and get me first.
Wow.
And the reason for that is not anything special, but I think the male psyche doesn't want to walk into court with himself and a male attorney, the appearance of 2 guys bashing his wife over the head in court on oral arguments.
Yeah.
So I think that they feel like it will be perceived differently if they have a female lawyer, which is why I think I have mostly male clients. But the smartest ones, like I said, are the females who know that that's maybe coming down the pike, and they're like, I know you represent men, like I want you first,
Wow.
So And I gel with them. I gel with everybody equally, but I normally gel with the guys because they're just simple creatures. You just tell them to follow instructions. You give them like a timeline of things to do, and they just do it. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd be right there.
I would hire you because I would just say she knows women. The thought process of what you just said, I would never have thought that two male men going in there and banging on. No, I'm telling you, I thought to myself, man, she knows women. She's a better representation than a male attorney because he doesn't know jack squat about women. That's how I looked at it. I never looked at it that way.
And it's not just knowing men or women, emotionally or psychology. It's definitely knowing the law. But I feel like, the appearance of, a softer side for the male litigant is what they're looking for. So it's like the appearance, but then like the bulldog teeth, or
Yes, yes.
People call me the ponytailed bulldog. It's really funny. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, so it's
funny.
good.
What do you think is the top driver of divorce?
I think there's two: sex and money. Money, the obvious. People are struggling financially. It's leading to more fights. It's leading to disagreements. It's leading to stress. If money's tight or if people are losing their jobs, it's a terrible experience, and it's hard for a lot of marriages to weather that storm. Sex in the marriage and outside of the marriage is a big cause. Yeah. So those two things.
Yeah.
I also think getting married, at what age you get married at influences it a lot. I got married for the first time when I was 20 years old. Wow. Over my parents' objection. And, when you're 20 and you're, with somebody, you're kind of like a tree. And I tell this to people when they're lamenting the loss of their marriage. When you get married young, you're like a little tree and you start growing, and your trunk is growing. But then as you age, you have like these little branches, and somebody goes this way and somebody goes that way. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. If you're growing, that's good. But if you grow in opposite directions, then the marriage generally fails. Mm-hmm. And, so many times I hear spouses say, well, they changed in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, thank God. Like, do you still want to be married to the person you, like, if somebody hasn't grown and developed in 10 years, that's a problem. The trick is to grow and develop together simultaneously. Yeah. And sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah. How do you ensure that happens? I mean, I know you're not a relationship coach per se, but
I don't know if there's a way to ensure that happens, but I think people who support their spouses and are very interested in their business and try to do everything to help them, and so you feel like it's a mutual effort, like you both are in everything together. I think that helps. Yeah. Listen, I know a lot of people. I went to high school, and there's a friend of mine. She's on my Facebook. She's been with the same guy since she's been a freshman in high school. They're still married. They just celebrated their anniversary. And man, nothing makes me happier. Yeah. Every year when they post their anniversary pics, I'm like, oh my God, this makes me so happy. And I don't know how they've done it. Right. I mean, when you're a freshman in high school, like that's the only person, hopefully, probably one or two that you've ever slept with in your entire life. Yep. And they are still like giddy, mushy, in love with each other. Yeah. And it just swells my heart, like just watching it. I think it's so beautiful. So clearly they've mastered it. Yep. Now, I will say this. He does spend 3 or 4 days a week out of the house because he's a fireman. So that absence might make the heart grow fonder. So she's always happy to see him. He's always happy to see her. And maybe that little bit of separation has drawn them closer together over time.
Yeah. No, that's a great observation. I think you're onto something.
I have a question about business, a little bit about business. Did you see an uptick in your business because of COVID? Because I know in 2008 and in 2001 during 911, those numbers for divorces were like skyrocketed up.
So COVID was a very interesting experience for me. The national lockdown was announced March 13th, which was a Friday. And we were all kind of scratching our heads, like we didn't really know what this meant, and we all kind of thought it was going to be like a 2-week thing, and well, whatever, we can ride out the wave for 2 weeks. And by about the end of April, beginning of May, I was a mess. I was panicking. I thought businesses were going to start crumbling. I didn't know what was. My phone stopped ringing because everybody was staying home, and I think people were scared, like they didn't know what to do. So the phone stopped ringing. Emails kind of slowed down, and I went into like this huge panic. Like, oh my God, I've spent 25 years building this business. What's going to happen? And I've always been one of those people that preach that. Fear, you can't control fear. All you can do is manage it, and 99% of the things that people worry about, if you write them down in a journal over a year, at the end of the year, if you go back and you look at the journal, 99% of them have never happened. Wow. So I had to remind myself, okay, you've been in business for 25 years, you survived 2008, like it's gonna be. So I had to like really work myself back into a positive viewpoint. And then what happened was people started getting crazy on each other. Domestic violence filings increased 800%. People were like, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck in a house with this person. I've been miserable with you forever already, and now I have to be with you 24 hours a day. So by June and July, it was like a rocket ship. So I went through that period of angst, and I think COVID put a lot of things in perspective for people. I think, at least for me, I think people realize that time is short. We don't know how long we have on this planet. And if we're not living our best life, maybe it's time to make a change. And unfortunately for some marriages, that the change was getting divorced. But when you realize, a global pandemic can wipe us out all in a year, what are we going to do with that time? Right. And so a lot of people have decided to change how they use their time. I did have a woman, you guys will find this interesting, I did have a woman come into my office, and she kind of startled me because she was completely bald, and she had just completed breast cancer treatments. And that's a very emotional topic for me because my own mom died of breast cancer. And so when she came in, I was instantly drawn to her, and I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I expected her to like tell me this like incredible sad story. And she literally sat back in my chair and said, I just survived stage 4 breast cancer, and I'm dumping my husband, sign me up. What? And I'm sure my reaction was like what you did, what? And she says, oh yeah, I now know the value of my own time. I am not spending one more minute with this guy, sign me up. Wow. And I was like, wow, right on, sister. Yeah. You're right. And she didn't want to talk about her treatment. She didn't want to talk about her trials and her tribulations. She was looking forward into what her new life was going to look like. And I was literally gobsmacked. Right. Like, wow, look at you, lady. Like, I love you, No kidding. So
she passed the interview, the client interview.
Yes, she passed the client interview, correct.
Gosh. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Normally I hear the opposite. So I work in disability insurance, and so that's a common thing for those who have been diagnosed with an illness or injury. Usually the healthy spouse is like, I need to step away from this, and they try and separate.
I've had that too.
I've never heard of the opposite.
Right.
That's kudos.
Wow.
Well, so the opposite way, how you're talking about, I had a woman come into my office, and the day after she told her husband she was diagnosed with breast cancer, he told her he wanted a divorce. And to me, I like literally my fangs and my claws came out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to represent you at a reduced rate. You're going through something in your life. Like, screw this guy. Sorry, can I say that on a podcast? Yeah. Like, how dare you? How dare you leave her at her biggest time of need? And I think of my own dad. My mom went through cancer. My dad could have been an alcoholic, a drug addict, whatever, watching his wife die over a 3-year period with 2 small children, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. But man, when she came into my office, I was like, oh no, I'm going to take care of you. And I love I've always been a fan of the underdog. You know, I don't like people who take advantage of other people. I don't like people to berate or make other people feel small. And so I feel like that's my gift. Like, I feel like I give them a little bit of power, a little bit of voice back to themselves.
Yep. I love that a lot.
I have a question. Tell us the effect. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of stuff with kids being involved in the divorces, and can you tell the audience maybe some suggestions of how to do it right if you're going to get divorced? Because a lot of times they put the kids in the middle and they use them as pawns.
So here's what I tell people: as much as you dislike your spouse, your child is 50% that person. And so a lot of people think, oh, if I tell little Johnny that their dad is terrible, they're going to hate their dad. And so they do that. But a little child's heart is naturally built to protect people that they feel are being attacked or beat up on. A little child wants to protect their little friend on the playground. So when a parent is attacking the dad to that child, it's having the opposite effect. It is not making the child hate dad more. It is pushing the child to dad because the little child wants to protect daddy from being hurt, right? So I tell people, if you think that this is going to help you and your child love you more, it's not. Because eventually they will completely align with that parent and they will hate you for talking that way about their dad or their mom, whatever the case may be. And so the kids who are the most well-adjusted are the kids who don't hear anything negative about another parent. And trust me, it's hard. It is so hard. Even in the most uncomfortable, vile, horrible situations, you got to staple on the smile and everything, like the Lego movie, everything's awesome. And they don't want to feel it. And those are the kids who are the most well-adjusted. And the kids who are the worst off have a parent who's just relentlessly attacking the character or the morals or the decision-making of the other parent. And while the kids are under the age of 18, it's brutal. But 100% of the time, that child will boomerang back around after they've been to college and seen the world a little bit, and they will know that that other parent attacked their other parent viciously throughout their adolescence. Wow. It always happens.
Wow. I could see that.
Yeah.
Similar to some of the articles that I saw you produce. I think one was how to deal with an angry ex, which I thought was very interesting, and then co-parenting with an ex. So if you're not taking notes from this podcast, make sure to go Google Denise Lite, and you'll come across all these articles on either one of those topics. Denise, in parting here, because we're already at 32 minutes.
Gosh, it went so fast.
I know, it does.
Can I ask one more question?
No, you're cut off.
Oh, man. This is a great question.
Okay, hit it.
All right, before we part ways, I know the story. I just can't even tell the story. I would like you to tell the audience and Robert the story about the name of the child, the judge.
Oh, no.
I mean, I think it's a great story for everybody.
Have you heard the story of No Name Baby?
No.
Oh my gosh, story of No Name Baby. So I went to court one day, and it was Judge Montez, and he was in downtown LA, and I went into court on a Wednesday, and unbeknownst to me that Judge Montez was retiring on that Friday, and there was a jovial atmosphere in the courtroom, and they had all these like balloons and flowers, and I'm like, what's happening? Oh, the judge is retiring Friday. Oh, good for him, you know. Right. I was there to just pick up some paperwork, but I had to sit in the courtroom for a while to make sure that it was processed. So the judge comes out and, he starts rolling through the cases, and then his total demeanor and his tone of his voice changes. And he says, "In re the matter of Jones." And I was like, oh, this sounds serious. I better look up, right? And the courtroom's packed, and so these two people walk up, and their two lawyers walk up. The judge is up there, and he's like, okay, let me get this straight. You guys never married. That's right, Your Honor. And you have a baby. That's right, Your Honor. And your baby's 10 months old. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. And you guys are here because you can't agree on the baby's first name?
Wow.
Yes, Your Honor. So they were there for the judge to complete the baby's birth certificate. So the judge is completely irritated at these people, right? And they're both represented by attorneys. And so he says, all right, well, ma'am, what do you call the baby? Your Honor, I call him Timmy after my great-grandfather who died in the Great Potato Depression of 1942. And the judge is like, okay. And sir, when you have the baby, what do you call him? Your Honor, I call him Jimmy after my brother who died of sudden infant death syndrome in 1976. And the judge is like, all right. And he goes, so you guys could get along well enough to create this child, but I need to name him, right? Yes, Your Honor, that's right. And, I'm hearing this and, I'm in the audience and I see people who just get slammed by judges all the time. And I felt like I wanted to be Elaine from Seinfeld. Do you remember that character?
Yeah.
I wanted to scream out from the back of the courtroom, just pick the middle name, lady, just pick the middle name. And so the judge goes, all right, I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to go in the back in my chambers. I'm going to read the sports section. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. I'm going to have a little bit of my donut, and you guys are going to meet and confer, and then you're going to tell me what agreement you've come to. Because if you make me pick the name, somebody's going to be unhappy. And the judge leaves. And they're all up there talking, and everybody's shaking their head no, shaking their head no. And the courtroom, you could hear an ant fart. It was so silent because everybody wanted to hear what they're talking about, right? And everybody's shaking their head no, no. And so all of a sudden the judge's chamber door opens and the clerk's like, Your Honor. And he looks down, he's got all this powdered donut on his black robe and he shakes it off. And he sits back down and he's like, we have an agreement, right? And one of the attorneys said, Your Honor, I'm sorry to report we don't have an agreement. And you hear, everybody in the courtroom. And so we're like, oh my God, who's he going to pick? Mikey or Timmy, Mikey or Timmy. And so the judge goes, okay, let the record reflect that I am completing the baby's birth certificate as follows. This child will be named Ricardo Jose Montes Jones. I am naming this child after myself, and you two people can explain why your child is named after a judge. And we were all like, oh, what? Oh my God, he just named the child after himself. And everybody in the courtroom was shocked. And so I hope they all went in the hallway and came to some agreement before the judge actually did it. But yeah, the judge named the kid after himself. And I'm like, that is the moment when I knew I'm writing a book. Right. I'm writing a book. These people are insane.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a good story.
I'll have to ask my mom if she really named me.
Oh my God.
After the doctor, Ron.
I always wonder why they call me Ricardo.
I'm going to start calling you Ricardo.
You should. That's good.
That's so funny.
Well, we're definitely ending on that note. If we haven't already, Denise, where can our listeners find and connect with you?
Your listeners can message me on Facebook. Denise Lite is my name. My phone number is 817-377-8080. They can call me there to set up a consultation appointment.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for sharing your stories. You absolutely have a book in you. I can tell just out of.
You want to ride it with me?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And Rudy, thank you for spending the time with us.
Of course. I always love spending time with you, Robert.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Prosperitas Financial is not an affiliate of Next Financial Group, Inc. This material is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase of sale of any security or other financial instrument. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. All the views expressed are those of Robert Clark and Prosperitas Financial and not of those of Next Financial Group, Inc. Next does not offer tax or legal advice. The S&P 500 is a market cap weighted index composed of common stocks of 500 leading companies in the leading industries of the U.S. economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is a price weighted index of 30 actively traded blue chip stocks.